Okay, so now we're going to make a Kanelsnegle, which is a Danish cinnamon roll. Well, not a Danish cinnamon roll. We're going to make around 10 of them. But I'm just going to demonstrate how that goes. So this is shaped like a log, as shown previously. And something that's just really good to keep in mind is that because I shaped it like a rectangular figure, you know, like a log, it's going to stretch easier this way than this way. So I'm going to start by rolling it widthwise and see where that takes me. So now I'm going to push it down. And let me take my bracelets and stuff off because I don't want them getting into anything. I notice when I want to get some flour on one side, I kind of drag it around. That is just how I've found works generally easiest when it comes to getting an even distribution of flour, not using too much flour also. And I'll pull the edges. So right now it's like a square. It's a little bit rectangular, but it's more or less a square. And let me see how wide it is right now. So right now, yeah, we're about 36, 30. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this the other direction, because in order to make these cinnamon rolls so that they're not very tall, which is the way that we generally want them with a Danish one, we want the rectangle, the longest side, to be away from us. So, you know, the width, and the length is actually the shorter side. Okay, let's see what we're at now. I think I'm going to aim for about 40 centimeters width. And the only reason why I'm calling it the width is because it's away from me. And we're going to roll it this way. So we're going to do, we'll say that that's about good. So it's 40 centimeters times 30 centimeters, which is about 16 inches by 12 inches. And then from here, we're going to take the, what's it called? The Borgmestermesse. Yeah, that's how it's called. Actually, in English, I think I call it the marzipan mixture, or marzipan spread. So we're going to take this marzipan spread. It's 150 grams. Now, some of you might be thinking, why does it even matter when I mentioned the flour underneath it? Why does it even matter if there's too much flour? This is why. It's when we get to this step that it does matter, because if you'll notice as I'm spreading, it's not moving. The dough itself is not moving a lot. That is what we want. Now you can see right there, it did move. So you kind of have to read the dough. You have to look at where it is moving, because when I go this way, it bunches together. So that means it's sticking up higher. So it'll be easier for me to go this direction because it's also sticking down here. Now we want to spread this out pretty evenly as you can. Obviously, you know, when you're making these at home, it doesn't really matter how perfect it is, because you're just gonna eat them. And what matters the most is if they taste good. So that it's kind of bunching up. I'm gonna scrape it off into my little cup and then put it down. And you can absolutely use a spoon or a knife for this. I just happen to have this rubber spatula that's clean, so I'm using it. And you'll also notice, if you can see it on the camera, that the last 3 centimeters, 1.5 inches or so of the dough does not have any of this marzipan spread on it. Okay. Now you can use more than this. This is about half of a portion. You can use more of this marzipan spread if you want. It's really up to you. Your rules, or your kitchen, your rules. This is just how I do it. And then we're going to take our custard. I moved it into a bowl so that I needed to use my little saucepan. So I moved it into a bowl, and I've actually used a little bit for something else. So I'm going to use about 1/3 of this. If I can even get it out. I'm going to pick it up. And once again, your kitchen, your rules. So if you want to use more than this, by all means, use more. Or if you want to use less, and maybe, because this is a cinnamon snail, or cinnamon roll, sorry, that's what it translates to, as a snail. If you don't like cinnamon, you could stop here and then just continue on to the next step. And then it could just be like a vanilla roll, sweet roll of some sort. Or you could add other spices instead if you really like nutmeg. That would be fine too. Okay, so that's about good. And now I'm going to add my cinnamon. And this is also whatever amount you want to do. If you really like cinnamon, use a lot of cinnamon. If you really don't, then don't. I've also used pumpkin pie spice before, and that was very good. Because it has more than just cinnamon in it. Cinnamon is the main spice, but it also has some other spices in it as well. So for me and my husband, I think this is about good. Now we're going to start rolling it. You can't really see it in the camera, but I'm starting in the center and working my way out. And as we go, you'll kind of need to pull the dough out a little bit because it tends to not roll perfectly evenly. Okay, and then I leave it like this. So you notice how I leave the tail end exposed. And you will see why in a minute. So now I'm going to grab a knife. Here's my knife. I'm going to use about 2 fingers. Now, if you want it to be exactly 10, you can, kind of measure it out, and you could even measure it with that, with like a tape measure and figure out exactly how far the spacing should be. But in my case, because I'm just making this for home, and yeah, I'm not making it to sell in any way. If I was making it to sell, I would make sure that it's a perfect dimension in every way. I'm just gonna use my fingers. I'm gonna use 2 fingers to show. I'm gonna grab it like this. This is how I was taught in the bakery. So you kind of pinch it like that, and then cut alongside. And that makes it so that it still holds its shape on this end. It doesn't completely get smushed. Okay, let's see how many we've got. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. That is perfectly fine. I'm totally okay with that. That's ideal. And if, this was about 30 centimeters wide, so maybe you could make it 28 or something like that if you wanted exactly 10. It also depends on your fingers, because my fingers, I think they're pretty average, but some people, they have really thick fingers. So, their cinnamon roll will be quite a bit fatter. But anyway, there's that. Now I'm going to go grab my baking sheet, and I'll show you how to put them on the baking sheet. Okay, so I have my baking sheet here, and I have my cinnamon rolls. Now, I'm going to take the tail end, and I'm going to tuck it underneath. I'm going to set it down. Take the tail end, tuck it underneath. And the reason why we do that is because these cinnamon rolls are going to be spaced out so that they're not touching when they bake. Some of them might touch a tiny bit. That's okay. But we generally don't want them to touch too much. It also, another benefit of tucking it under is it causes a kind of seal. It depends on the piece, but you can see how, this is exposed. All of this goodness inside is exposed. And then the bottom, not as much. And so it actually keeps the middle part a little bit more gooey, which, in my opinion, is definitely desirable. Like, I like that. But if you wanted to, if you were making a larger portion, or you just prefer it, you can absolutely put them closer to each other. But typically a Danish cinnamon roll, it's flatter rather than tall and touching each other. So, and before we put a cloth over it to let it raise, we're going to take our fingers and push it down. This part, I'm not going to say it's necessary. I know it makes them look ugly at first, but that will change as they proof, as they raise. It just makes it so that they will actually grow out a little bit more. Rather than raising tall, they're going to raise a little bit more flat and even. It also ensures that all the cinnamon rolls will bake more evenly, because they're all about the same size, same height, same thickness, But anyway, so now I'm going to put a cloth over these. I'm going to put them in a warm place, let them proof when proof that's the same as raising, or even just resting. I'm going to let them proof for about 30 minutes, and then I'm going to baste them with egg, which is just taking a brush and putting egg on them. so that they'll get a nice shine when they bake. And I'll come back when that time comes. Alrighty, so here we are. These have raised or proofed. And now we are going to take some egg wash and brush these with it so that it will make the dough nice and shiny. Now because these have risen, the bread or the dough has a lot of CO2 in it, and it's nice and fluffy and soft, so we don't want to poke them or else it will deflate. So we just need to be nice and gentle. And then my oven has preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius. And I will bake these for about 13 to 15 minutes. I'll start with 13 and see where they're at. And if they need a minute more or so, then I'll give it to them. Oh, there's a little blob of egg. But yeah, and then I'll start the video again. I'll bring the video out, or when these come out, I'll start the video again and show you how they should look when they're done. But yeah, 13 minutes, 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so here are the cinnamon rolls fresh out of the oven. Well, they've been sitting here for about 5 minutes. As you can see, they're not touching very much. That is how they should be, if you want them to be real Danish. But like I said before, you could have them be closer and then they would be taller. You can see that these are quite flat. That's what we want. The last thing that we're gonna do is we're going to put some glaze on them. This is optional, but I'll just show you how to make some glaze that sets up, because glaze is just made with water and powdered sugar. But if you use hot water, it won't be runny. So anyway, this is what they look like finished. They had 13 minutes baking, and yeah, I'll just show you how to make the glaze, and then we'll decorate them, and then they'll be finished. Okay, so here we have our cinnamon rolls. They're completely cooled down, and I'm just going to show a couple different ways that we can use this glaze to decorate them. You can use a piping bag. I'm not going to because I want to show you how to do it at home. Since that is what that's what my recipes are catered to, is for home bakers. So obviously a piping bag would be ideal because it's funnel shaped. You can just cut off the tip, super easy. But for this case, I am gonna use a plastic bag, and this plastic bag I've used before. I just cleaned it out. We'll see how this goes, because this is one of those plastic bags that, yeah, that's folded up. Let me actually see if I have one that doesn't have a fold. Yes, I do. Okay, so here's just a standard Ziploc bag. It doesn't have a fold, it's just standard. So I'm gonna take my hand. This is how I do it. You can also use a glass. This is just how I do it. So you can see my hand is holding it like this. The tip, there is one tip that is angled down and the other tip is up and inside my hand. It's kind of crumpled up there. And that is because I don't want it, I'm actually going to pull it over here. That's because I don't want the glaze to go into both tips. I just want it to go into one. So I have it open like this. And now I'm going to put my glaze into the bag. And as you can see, I'm going to use my finger and I'm going to scrape it off. This is the cleanest way that I have found to do it, because I'm using my fingers through the bag. Now, I don't normally, when I'm just making these at home, I don't normally put any glaze on them because I think they taste great without it. So I actually don't know if this is enough glaze for all of these cinnamon rolls, but we'll see. And I will make sure to put the recipe, I'll make sure to have the glaze, the proper amount, in the recipe for these cinnamon rolls. So I'm gonna do, there's what, 11 of these? I'm gonna do about half of them with one type of, pattern. And then I'm gonna do the other half with a different type of pattern that you can do. It's pretty simple, not anything too crazy. So from here, you can zip it all the way up, but it's not needed. I'm just gonna take whatever is left over and push it down from where my thumb was. And then I'm gonna twist it so that it doesn't, as I squeeze it, it doesn't come back up. So before I cut this and show you how to decorate these, when you are squeezing this out, the best way to do it so that it doesn't make your hand cramp up is to squeeze from the top and down like that. So you start here and clamp, and then you just gradually squeeze, and you use as much pressure as you need. If you don't clamp this top piece and you just squeeze evenly, it'll cause it to shoot back up the back. And it also causes your hand to cramp and hurt. So I'm gonna start off, I'm gonna cut it just a little piece and see if that's enough. I'm gonna test it. Yeah, that's probably a good size. So the first one I'm gonna do is a drizzle. I'm gonna go slow so you can see it well. So you can put on as much as you desire. You can have it closer, you can have it farther. It's completely up to you. But you go pretty much all the way to the edge. I'll add a little extra to that one. And we'll do the last one. Nice. And then we can also do a spiral where you follow more or less the spiral of the snail. That is the traditional way of doing it. This is the most traditional, classic way, is where you spiral with the roll. This is what you'll see the most often in Denmark, is you'll see this nice pretty spiral. Okay, so I don't think we have quite enough glaze for the last one. However, I mean, that's okay. So maybe we should have done, rather than just 100 grams of powdered sugar, maybe we should have done 120 or 150. Yeah, probably 120. So I'll put that in the recipe, but you get the gist. So, I mean, it's up to you. However you want to do this, however you want to decorate them. These are just the two ways that I've seen glaze put on. And like I said, you don't even need to put glaze on necessarily, or icing, sorry, it's called glaze in Danish. You don't even need to put it on if you don't want to. But as you can see, it's set up, so it's not running all around. Sure, there's some that has run down to the bottom, and it's touching the baking paper, right? But the lines are still very defined. Everything is still very defined. It's not just melting together. And that doesn't change if it's hot or if it's cold. It doesn't change. And that's because heat helps the powdered sugar set up. So anyway, if you have any questions, please, by all means, comment below or send me an email, and I'll do my best to get back to you. But yeah, that's Danish cinnamon rolls, or Kanelsnegle.